tell me that I'm live. Okay, I am live. Here we go. All right, guys, I apologize for those of you that were on the feed before. I had something happen. It looked like I was getting hacked, and the feed was getting hacked, and I think we're good now. So we'll just kind of hang out here for a minute, and hopefully everybody catches back up. I apologize. Unfortunately, now the link isn't good, which is a bummer, but we'll hang on for a minute or two here, and hopefully everybody will kind of jump back in and join us. So welcome to this garden workshop. I'm excited to have you guys here. All right, there we go. Viewers, sorry guys. I apologize. When I clicked the live, we had something go funny, and I was getting a background advertisement coming through, and yeah, it was weird. So I apologize. Here we are now. So yeah, so hopefully everybody finds us. There was about 40 people waiting to watch the video, and I totally blew it. So I apologize. So we're here now. So let's go for it and get moving on this fun webinar that I'm excited to have for you guys. So let me just resize myself here a little bit with my technology. All right. Okay, so today we are going to, yeah, others in the chat, it'll take a minute for everybody to catch back up and find us again. So sorry. I'm a little bummed. I had everything set, and everybody was waiting, and then we kind of had some faux pas. I guess that's what happens with technology sometimes. So let me see, we got a little bit of a glare there. Okay. All right, so first off, while we're kind of waiting for everybody to catch back up, say hello. Where are you from? What's your garden zone? And since we are talking particularly about winter gardening today, how cold does it get where you live? So let's talk about those things. So first off, got somebody here from North Central Washington, Michigan. Maria is from Michigan. Charles, hello. Is it Rick? Yeah, Rick. Hi. How are you guys? Okay. All right. Who else is here today? Glad to have you guys here. I apologize. Heard the funny stuff and was patient. Yeah, I'm sorry. Zone 8B, Zone 6. Good. All right. Okay. Sounds like we're doing all right now. Everybody hear me okay and see me okay? Alabama, great. Zone 4, Wisconsin, that's cold. All 4 seasons. Southeast Iowa, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Texas, Zone 8A, cool, good. Central Illinois, fun. I was in Illinois just a couple of years ago. We drove through there and spent a week or so back there. Bonnie is from South Carolina. Wyoming. Germany, awesome, cool, very cool. Okay, all right, so here's what we're going to do, guys. You are welcome to, as we go through this presentation, you're welcome to ask questions, but I've done a few of these lives before, and the questions get super distracting for me while I'm actually doing the teaching part. So here's what we're going to do. I actually have my daughter Michaela, who is monitoring the feed. So anytime you guys have a question, go ahead and ask it. And what she's going to do is, we've got my phone here, and she is going to keep track of questions as we go through and list those. And then I'm going to go back and answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So we're not going to spend a ton of time. I'm not going to, I want to honor your guys' time and make sure that we, we don't spend a million hours here. So we'll go, I think the presentation I have for you is about 20 minutes long, and then I'll answer questions. And so let's kind of go through it. Okay, Chattanooga, Tennessee, North Central Washington, Oklahoma, California, Detroit, Texas, Temple, Texas. Cool. Good stuff, guys. All right. Glad to have you here. Okay. So hang around, because when we're done, there's an opportunity for you guys to get a free course when we're finished up with my free 5 crops for food storage course. So today, this little workshop is on growing spinach in the wintertime. And this presentation will actually work for all of you. Basically, the ideas and the concepts that I'm going to have for you will work for all of the different zones. And we're going to go through how you can get a spinach harvest for up to 8 months. And that's really going to depend on where you live. And surprisingly, the warmer it is where you live, the actual shorter your harvest time is going to be, because we're going to have less actual cool weather to grow in. We're going to talk about when you should be getting this winter spinach in. We're going to talk about how to plant it, or how much to plant. We're going to talk about when you should start harvesting, and we're going to talk about how to protect it from the winter cold. And we'll kind of cover. I wanted this video to be pretty broad, and so we're going to talk about conditions from zones 3 all the way up to zones 9 and 10, and what you can do to have this winter spinach harvest. Okay, so a couple of things first to start off, just so that you're sure you're in the right place. This is not really for those of you that grow in containers. Containers don't do super well in the wintertime, and so I just wanted to make sure you guys recognize that. We are going to be talking about growing either in raised beds or in the ground, okay? And you need to be able to dedicate some significant space to it, at least like a 4 by 8 foot cold frame, okay? And then for those of you everywhere except for maybe zones 8, 9, and 10, you're going to need to deal with either a hoop house or a cold frame to help you with this season extension, okay? And a lot of this advice is really going to be beneficial to those of you that live in cold winter climates. So I live in a zone 6, and we have, a fantastic harvest of spinach all winter long. And I know people that live as cold as like zones 4 that do as well. But you can also pull this off in even like as cold as zone 3. The last thing is, just so that you guys are clear, when we get to the end of the presentation, I've got about a 20-25 minute presentation for you. I do have an offer for you at the end. And so if you're offended by that, this isn't the right class for you. So I do have that we have the opening right now of our year-round gardening course, which is a full-blown 5.5 hour, 6 hour course that teaches you how to garden year-round, and we are going to be talking about that towards the end. So if that offends you, then I just wanted to make sure you guys were clear about that. But I've got a good solid presentation for you, okay? All right, so who am I? My name is Rick Stone, and I am the founder of the Gardening Academy, and I'm also the principal author of Our Stony Acres, and that's where you guys are watching is on our YouTube channel. I'm a master gardener, and my wife and I have been gardening for 23 years now. And we have been gardening year-round, so 365 days a year in a Zone 6 garden for 11 years now. So let me explain that. So we figured all of this out and learned how to do this in May of 2009. So our first harvest that year was some lettuce in May of 2009. Then we went through our entire summer garden and then moved into our fall and winter garden. And we have had something available to eat from our garden every day since, okay? 365 days a year, there's something that we can harvest. Now, do we harvest every day? No, we don't. But there's always something for us to harvest in our garden 365 days a year. So that's one of the things that I'm going to teach you. And I'm going to take a drink of water right now because I'm already choking. That's never good on a live presentation, huh? Okay. So the idea here is we want to get a long winter harvest of spinach. And that involves a few things. We can get a harvest of up to 8 months when we are looking at, sorry guys, I'm choking. Of course that happens on a live broadcast. Sorry about that. Okay, that's better. So you can get up to 8 months harvest from one planting of spinach and some other crops. And so that's what we're going to kind of focus on today. We're going to talk about when to plant, how to protect from pests, I want you to plant big. I want you to plant on at least a pretty decent sized bed. And then we're going to talk about when you need to be harvesting. We're going to talk about row covers, hoop houses, and cold frames. And then there are some other crops that these same principles apply to. So when we get to the end of the presentation, I will talk to you about those crops as well, because there's more than just spinach that you can do this to. Okay. All right. So let's talk about planting first. So when we're talking about fall and winter plantings of spinach, you want to time this about 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost. So the idea here is that we want to get a pretty good, well-developed crop of spinach going before the frost and the really cold weather comes. Now, remember in the fall that things develop slower. So, you know, your spinach in the spring may be ready quicker than that, but in the fall there's a longer development time because the sunlight is going down. Less and less sunlight, instead of in the spring it's going up. So things take a lot longer. So you want to target about 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost if you're planning on harvesting in the fall. Now, if you want to just overwinter and have a really early spring harvest, then you can wait for as late as maybe 4 weeks before that first frost. But again, the idea here is to get it in a really good time frame so that those plants are well developed before the cold weather starts showing up. So let's use my garden for an example here on the planting. Our first frost in our Zone 6 garden is October 1st. That's our average first frost for our area. So count back 8 weeks and we start harvesting we start planting our spinach and some of the other crops on August 1st. So that's when we actually start that planting process. And I've planted as late as August 21st, so that actually puts us about 5 weeks out from our first frost and still had a successful winter crop. But the earlier you get it in, the better. And the other thing is it's not a bad idea if you're going to plant more than one bed, maybe plant one 8 weeks out and then plant another one 6 weeks out. And that kind of will give you a little bit of a variation on when things come up. Okay. So, and then again, if you're only interested in just getting things to come up early in the spring, then I would say about 4 weeks before your first frost is when you're going to plant. So that's your planting time for spinach. Now, one thing that I really want, and this picture, hopefully you guys can see it. I'm going to move myself. This is fabric row cover. So we're talking here about a light fabric row cover. And I want you guys to use a light fabric row cover when you plant in the fall. And the reason why is, you know, you're probably going to be planting, for most of you, sometime in August or early September. And there's usually still a lot of pests in your garden that can really cause you some problems, especially things like aphids. If you get aphids on your spinach or other crops for winter, and then you store them in a cold frame, that's just great for the aphids. They'll survive all winter long. So we want to make sure that we keep those pests off of your crops. And so the easiest way to do it is to use a light fabric row cover and then just weight it down on the ends with some fence posts or some bricks or whatever, just to hold it over the crop. The other thing that I found is by putting that fabric row cover over the top, it also helps your crop to germinate faster and to grow faster. The first maybe 5 years that we did our winter garden, we didn't use the fabric row cover. And as soon as I started using this fabric row cover, boy, our crops were just so much faster and better than they were before that. So a great way to do that, and then it's an organic method as well. It keeps those pests off without using sprays. Now remember, this is a light fabric row cover, so there's different qualities of row covers, and we're going to talk about heavy fabric row covers here in just a minute. For pest protection, you want to use a light one, so one that says that it has maybe just like 1 or 2 degrees of frost protection. That's what we're looking for, and also one that maybe has a light transmission rate of somewhere between 80 and 90%, because we want our plants to grow well and we don't want to block the sun, but we also want to keep those bugs out. Okay? All right, so next on the list. Okay, this involves some work. A winter garden actually, does involve some work. During the winter, it doesn't really involve much other than harvesting, but I want you to plant quite a bit. It needs to be a meaningful amount, and so I would say that you ought to dedicate at least a 4 by 8 foot bed to this to make it worth your while. These planted, you're probably going to start harvesting those the first 8 to 10 weeks after you've planted. So for us, again, let's use our garden as an example. We plant on August 1st. We'll probably start harvesting our spinach about the 15th of October, okay? And what you want to do is we're going to gauge this and monitor this. And so start harvesting the biggest leaves first, and then you're just kind of constantly pulling off those big leaves throughout the fall and winter, and that's and then they just kind of keep continuing to grow and giving you a good harvest. So if you kind of manage it really well by cleaning off those big leaves first and then letting more grow, then things will really happen. Now, the dead of winter is when you are going to be the slowest in your harvest. So you're looking at, for most of us, December and January is when we're really going to struggle. You will be able to harvest, but not nearly as often. So in the fall, we're harvesting, once or twice a week. In the wintertime, we usually are harvesting probably every 10 days or so, and we'll do a big harvest, but the growth, because there's no sunlight, the growth really slows down from December, January, and most of February. It's going to be really slow, and so you need to have everything kind of there before the dead of winter happens, and then we're going to cover it up and protect it and harvest. And then once the dead of winter is over, so kind of when February starts to roll back around, then those plants are going to just take off, and you're going to have a huge spring harvest. Okay. Now, one thing that I do want to point out, number 5 on the list here, is when you are harvesting during the dead of winter, the really cold months, you always want to make sure that you only harvest on a sunny day. If you were to go out there at 7 o'clock at night in the middle of January, the temperatures inside your hoop house or your cold frame are going to be freezing, and so your spinach is going to be frozen. And if you pick it while it's frozen, and I know this sounds a little counterintuitive, but if you pick it while it's frozen, it's going to stay mushy, okay? But if you wait until it's warm and you harvest when it's warm and the plants have thawed out, so if they're inside a cold frame, that could easily be inside the cold frame the temperatures could get up to above 30 on a day that's in the teens. But you just need to choose a sunny day when your plants are thawed out, and then if you pick those leaves off, they'll be fine. But if you try and harvest them when they're frozen, then they're going to turn to mush. Okay. All right. Wow. Take a little pause here for a second. We've got 75 people here. Looks like Michaela's getting her work out. Now remember, guys, if you have questions, if you have any questions, please go ahead and you can start throwing those up, because we will. I'm about 5 or 10 minutes away from being done, and we'll answer any questions that you've got. Okay, so now let's talk about protecting your crops. There are 3 different ways that I like to use for protecting my crops. And I'm all for easy and simple, and that's why some of you probably have greenhouses, and so you can definitely do the same thing inside a greenhouse. But I'm all for easy and simple and inexpensive, and so I usually kind of stray away from the greenhouses just because they're a lot more expensive to put up and build. So the 3 methods that I'm going to give you are really reachable, especially the first 2. You could do row covers and hoop houses for $20, no problem. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is row covers. And a heavy, now we're talking about heavy fabric row covers this time. And these would be ones that have a protection rating of like 6 to 8 degrees below freezing. They'll usually say that on the package. It'll say like frost blanket, heavy fabric row cover. You want to use the heavy stuff, okay? Because we're no longer worried about growing when we start reaching those freezing temperatures. Now we're just worried about protecting, okay? So if you live in zones 9 and 10 and you're growing in the wintertime, you're not going to need a row cover. Okay, spinach is hardy enough in those zones that if you do have a rare frost, it'll be okay. The spinach will be fine. In zones 8, you're probably going to be just fine with just a fabric row cover. So those of you that live in zone 8 can cover up your crops with a fabric row cover, and you would be fine. Now, you could definitely use a cold frame or a hoop house, but because you're warmer and you don't have a lot of really low temperatures, you ought to be okay in zone 8 with just fabric row covers. Zone 7, it might be enough in like a zone 7B, but really I think in zone 7 you might want to start thinking about a hoop house or a cold frame. And then for those of us that are in zones 3 through 6, you're going to use fabric row covers, and you're going to want to have them because when we have those really cold temperatures in January and February, you're going to want to make sure that you've got some extra protection, and that's what those fabric row covers are going to be used for. But you definitely, with spinach, will not be able to just use a row cover. Now, with crops like mosh or kale, you probably could get away with just using a row cover, but spinach is not quite as hardy as those, and so you're going to want to use something else. Okay, so that's method number 1 of protecting, is a row cover. Method number 2 would be a hoop house, and you can see I'm not sure what the computer did here, but it looks like it's snowing in that picture, and I think it was snowing when I took that. So a hoop house, I like mini hoop houses. They go well over raised beds. You can also just build them very simply with some rebar in your main garden. So you just pound some rebar into the ground and then put the hoops on that rebar and then cover it with plastic. Works really well. I've got several videos if you guys would like to watch those to teach you how to build a hoop house here on my YouTube channel. In zone 8, a hoop house is really nice to have. It will add time to your garden and will help get things growing faster, but it's not 100% necessary. For those of you that are in zone 7, a hoop house is probably all that you really need. You can use a hoop house to extend your growing season, and a cold frame will be great, but might be overkill. Zone 6, I've grown spinach in my zone 6 garden over the winter in a hoop house, and it didn't do nearly as well as it does in the cold frame. So you're kind of right on the edge. Zones 3, 4, and 5, a hoop house is not going to be enough to protect your crop the entire winter without some additional help. Okay, so the other thing, number 5, add row covers. So especially for those of us in 7 through 3, you can add a heavy fabric row cover inside your hoop house when the temperatures really start getting cold. So once you leave the 20s and get into the teens and the nights are getting way down there close to 0, if you throw a fabric row cover over the top of your crops inside your hoop house, that doubles up the protection and makes them super hardy and helps them to last. All right, and then the last thing is cold frames. And so this is a picture of my cold frames. Let me move me out of the way again here. This is actually 2 cold frames together. So a cold frame is basically a wooden box with some type of glass lid. And you can make them any way you want. Mine I kind of made from scratch, and they have plexiglass lids. Other people use like old storm windows or storm doors. Anything like that. But the idea of a cold frame is it's a wooden box with a glass top, and that adds a whole bunch of extra thermal protection to your crops, and will be for sure the best protection for you. Now, this is great if you live in zones 3 to 6, absolutely necessary in zones 3, 4, and 5, and it's super handy for me in zone 6 as well. The nice thing about zone 6 with a cold frame is the ground never really freezes inside the cold frame. You may go out there on a really cold morning and it might be frozen, but by noon the ground's thawed. And so if you're planting things like carrots or turnips or beets or something like that, it's easy to get them out of the ground because the ground really never thaws or never freezes there. Okay, so cold frames are your best protection, best level by far of protection, and again, you can add fabric row cover inside the cold frame when it gets really, really cold. So those of you in zones 3, that's going to be your only strategy to keep things alive, is to make sure that you put fabric row cover inside your cold frame when those super cold temperatures hit. Okay, and then again, remember, we're going to harvest from our cold frames or our hoop houses only on sunny days when the temperature inside gets high enough to thaw your plants out. Okay, all right, so that is about it. Now, what I've taught you today will also apply to kale, Swiss chard, tatsoi, and mosh. Okay, all of those are super hardy crops that will do really well. And in fact, kale and mosh are hardier than spinach and will do even better. And that's what I use my hoop houses for, is kale, because it does so well, and it's taller too. So kale plants get pretty tall and don't fit super well in cold frames. So any of those you can as well. Tatsoi is a Asian green, kind of like bok choy, but it actually looks more like spinach. The plants grow bigger than a spinach plant, but it kind of looks like spinach, and it has a little bit of a cabbagey flavor to it. Very hardy. And then mosh is also called lamb's lettuce or corn salad, and it is a kind of a lettucey, but it has a really nice nutty flavor to it, and really good as well. And so all of those crops can be grown indoors, or in cold frames and hoop houses all winter long, even in zone 3. And for zone 3, now for those of us in a little bit warmer, zone 5, 6, 7, there's a lot more stuff. There's actually about 30 crops that you can grow during the winter time to various stages. Like broccoli, you can't grow broccoli usually most winters all the way through the winter, but you can grow, like for us in zone 6, we usually are still harvesting broccoli until about the 1st of December. But these 5, so spinach, kale, Swiss chard, tatsoi, and mosh, are all ones that can, pretty much anywhere you live can be harvested all winter long. Okay? All right, and this brings me to the year-round gardening class. So I guess we're okay to just leave me here. You just get to look at me twice. I did want to invite you guys to the year-round gardening course. And this is our course where we teach you how to do all of this stuff. And let me just, this one, what's the best way to learn how to become a better gardener? It's by learning from someone. And for me, I learned how to do all this year-round gardening by reading like 5 or 6 different books, watching a million YouTube videos, and all of this different stuff in order to figure out how to do this. And is what I've done in the year-round gardening course is I've compiled all of that information and put it together so that you guys can have it in an easily consumable format. Okay, so the course itself has about 5.5 hours of instruction, and then we only open the course up. It's not one of those kind of video courses that's open all the time. I want it to be an experience for you guys, and I really want to teach you how to get a year-round garden going this year. And so what we do is we only open it up a couple of times a year. And right now it's open. It'll be open from July 5th until July 15th. And once we close it again, then for the next 4 weeks we have weekly study guides where I take you guys through the content in the course. We don't try and tackle all 5.5 hours at once. We just break it up into little pieces, and then we go through. And so each week we cover something, and then at the end of that week we do a live Q&A session like this. And we do that in our private Facebook group. And so there's 4 live Q&A sessions that we do as well. So you get all of that for, ding, 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 the price of $69. So, and that's ongoing access. So every year when we bring the course back live, you will continue to have access to it. I mean, you'll have access to it ongoing anytime. You can watch it anytime you want. But every year when we bring, when we do the whole big launch and we do the Q&As, you'll always have access to that as well and be able to see the course. But since you guys are watching today, for the next 48 hours, I'm going to knock $10 off the price. So you guys can buy it for $59 plus you get this free course. This is our bonus course, and it's our 5 garden crops to grow for food storage, and you will get that course as well. Okay, so that is the year-round gardening course. Really quick, let me just show you when you click on the link. So there's a link down below that will take you out and give you the $10 off. Also will notify me that I need to give you the free course. You click on that link and it's going to come right here, and you're just going to click on enroll in the course, and then it's going to, let me move me over here so that you guys can see what's going on. It's going to ask you for your email address and your name. Please make sure that you click yes on the email correspondence. That's how I communicate with you guys, and so if you don't click that, then I can't send emails to you. And then you'll put in your credit card information, or you can buy via PayPal as well. And then once you click purchase the course, it'll ask you to set a password so that you can then access, and you'll have private access to the course. Okay? All right, so pretty easy to do there. All right, so let's go through the questions and let's see how this worked out. So my daughter Michaela has been feeding your questions to me in a spreadsheet here. So let me, and my old man eyes are having to look a little bit. Okay, Anita Ogden is asking what zone Oregon is. Anita, the easiest way to do that is to go over to my website, and I'll, I can't do it here. On my website, if you go to OurStonyAcres.com, then just go in the search bar and type garden zone, and that will take you, there's an article there that will direct you. And the same for for Eunice, what is London, England in, what zone, that will also link you up. There's a European map, and they all kind of equate. So the zone system was originally done here in the US by the USDA, and several other countries and regions have now adopted a system, or they have a translation system, so that, like, when I say zone 7, you can look and see. And London, my understanding is, Eunice, that for the most part London is going to be probably zone 7 for the most part. There could be some zone 8 in England as well. Anita, though, you're probably going to be zone 7 or 8, unless you live on the coast. You could be zone 9 there. Okay? All right. Looks like we had a question about fertilizers, and MI Gardener does sell the Trifecta Plus. That is a great thing. Thank you, guys. Okay, so what other questions do we have here? Let me look. All right. Michaela, if you're still listening, text me and let me know if there are any more questions. Okay, yeah, good question. It is a one-time. So Maria, it is a one-time payment. You don't renew every year. This is a buy it and it's yours. So the $59 price is a one-time thing. So you do not have to renew every year. You get it and it's yours. So you get to stick with it. Okay. What would be best, straw or heavy compost for ground protection during the winter? I'm not a huge fan of straw, but if you're looking to protect the ground, that's probably your better choice. Although I always put compost in the fall, but I will mix it into the soil first, so that you get a chance to kind of mix that in and get those nutrients in, and then the straw you can pull off later. Okay, what else? Looks like Michaela's working here. All right. Okay. I think, my friends, that's about it, unless somebody else has any more questions. Okay. Hopefully, guys, this was helpful to you. I tried to make it helpful. I'm going to do a couple of more of these, at least one more, maybe 2 over the next week. So keep an eye out, and hopefully next time we won't have the technical problems that we did at the beginning. I apologize, because that is a problem. And the other, so I'm just kind of following the questions here. Got to watch straw. If it's damp, it can end up with slugs, and that is true. The other concern that I sometimes have with straw is that you'll sometimes bring in some weed, depending on, weed seeds depending on where the straw came from. So it can introduce some extra weeds to your garden that you really didn't want. But I have used straw over the years a lot, and it has been just fine. Okay, great. All right, guys. Remember that you have 48 hours from right now to take advantage of that special. So click on the link down below, and that will take you out to the online gardening school where you can buy the course, and then I will get you your free course as well. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm just checking here. I was going to end, but we've got a couple more questions. It looks like. What is the type of pest cover that you use? Okay. Sorry. So it's also fabric row cover, Susan, and it is light fabric row cover. So there's different grades or weights of the fabric row cover, and you want for pest protection, you want to use light fabric row cover, and especially in the summertime when you're still after getting the plants growing, that's when you want to be using a light one, because it's very thin and it lets the light through and makes it pretty easy. Okay. Yes, there is, Michaela. If you want to throw that up in the comments, it's on our website. Just go Stony Acres Garden Zone, and you can find that there. Okay, guys, I think that's it. Thank you. Wow, I had a lot of people here, and especially for the mess up at the beginning. I'm glad that everybody found us again. And if you guys enjoyed this, please let me know, and we'll probably do, I think I'm going to do at least one or two more on different year-round gardening topics. Okay, so look forward to those over the next week or so. And again, the year-round gardening school, or the year-round gardening master course, closes on August 15th for new students. We already have 30 plus people that have joined. Based on how things went last year, I'm thinking we'll probably be somewhere between 75 and 100 new students, which is awesome and fun. And we will have a lot of fun in that course. And we do a lot more of these lives, and in the lives I'm actually answering your questions and watching the feed a little bit more. So it's just a fun opportunity. So come and join us. Okay.